We begin today the Gemara on Daf Hey Medalef, right at the beginning, the first line. Okay, this Gemara continues from the Mishnah that before spoke about a case where there's a person that has a property in the middle and someone else surrounded him with 4 properties all around. So if the one that's outside, which is called a makif, built walls, according to Rashi, he built walls between the outside property, that's his property, and the inside property. So then if you build 4 walls, then the one on the inside has to participate with the expenses of those walls. So the Gemara brings a story in connection to this. Runye akfei Ravina ma'aber chaysav. Runye, so Ravina surrounded him with properties from all 4 sides. And Ravina built walls on all 4 sides around Runye's property, which is on the inside. Amalei, so Ravina says to Runye, Havli kamada gadri, pay me like what I spent, the actual materials that I spent for building this wall, your share, because as the halach is that you have to, once he's surrounded from all 4 sides, he has to pay. And Rashi explains the kamada gadri means, because before we had in the Gemara, first of all, there was an argument between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yosi, when exactly you have to pay, and also there was an argument whether you can demand of the nikif, the one on the inside, to pay mamish for these materials, or he only has to pay cheaper. You could say that for me it would be enough to have a cheaper wall. But it was demanding of him, according to Rav Huna, that explained according to Rabbi Yosi, that we paskin, that you have to pay full price, his share of these materials of the wall you built. So he said, lo yavla, he didn't want to pay to him. He didn't pay. So Ravina says to him, Havli lefi demei kanim bezoil. At least pay me for the value of a cheap wall, a wall of reeds. At least that you would want and you would build, and now you have this wall. Pay me for that value. Lo yavle, he didn't pay him that either. So Ravina says to Runya, Havli aganetirusa. At least pay me the money that you would pay a guard to guard your property that you don't have to pay now. At least that price pay. Lo yavle, he didn't pay him that either. Yay machad. So one day, Havakogoda dikli. Runya was cutting the dates from his palm tree. Amalela arise. So Ravina wanted to prove that he has a use of the wall that he built around the property. So Ravina says to his worker, Zil shkomine kiburadahini. Go and take from him a cluster of dates. Azala suye. So Ravina's worker went to go and take from him a cluster of grapes. Rama bekala. Runya began screaming, hey, what are you doing? You're taking my dates. Amalei. So now Ravina turned to Runya and said to him, Golas daitech. You just revealed your thinking, the menech nichalach, that you're actually very happy that you have a wall here because you have a palm tree and you don't want anyone to take the palm tree. You can't say, well, I don't need a guard, I don't need a wall, I don't need anything. No, look, you don't want anyone to just come and steal your dates. And Ravina said, Lo yehei eli iza ba'alma. Let it be that only goats, if there'd be no wall there, even goats can walk in and take from your dates. Miloi bayre tirusa, would you not need some kind of guarding for your date, for your palm tree? So again, he was demanding of him to pay his share in this wall. Amalei, so Runya still did not want to pay, and he says to Ravina, Izabalma, if it's just goats that you're concerned about that would come and take from my tree, so lav lach all that's needed is that you just have to shout at them and to scare away the goats. I don't need a wall for this. Amalei, so Ravina says to him, Vot v'lav gavre bois de mechlila. Wouldn't you have to hire a guard to shout at these goats to scare them away? So he's still demanding that he should pay at least the minimum that he's gaining by not having to hire a guard. Also, so this came to Rava. Amalei, so Rava tells Runya, Zil paisi b'maydi fayis. Go, and it's actually a better idea for you to appease him and to pay Ravina what he's ready to accept, a much cheaper price. V'iloi, if you're not going to pay him that, then I'll paskin for you what the real halacha is, and that is according to the way that Rav Huna explained to Rabbi Yosi, that in such a case, when you are surrounded from all 4 sides with a wall, you have to participate fully in the value of the expensive wall that was put up. Another story the Gemara brings with Runya and Ravina. Runya zavan ara ametzre de Ravina. Runya bought a property right on the border of Rav Huna's property. Now this Gemara here is discussing the halacha that we learned in Bava Basra, the halacha of Bametzra. In such a case, since this property was up for sale, who's the one that gets the first rights to buy it? Ravina. We learn from Vasisa Yashav Atayv that you have to do the straight and right thing to give the neighbor the option to buy the property so he can use it and work all together in one property. So here Runya went and bought this property that was neighboring Ravina's property and didn't give him the first option to buy. So Ravina lisluke mishumdina de bar metzra. So Ravina thought that he has the right to tell Runya to give up the property and allow him to buy it because of the halacha of bar metzra. Amalei Rav Safra bereid Rav Yevel Ravina. So Rav Safra, the son of Rav Yevel, tells Ravina, Omri inchi. People say, and here the Gemara says an expression, there are a few pshatim in this. The main pshat that Rashi says here is, Arba'ol etzala, that the hide, you have to pay 4 zuz to buy hide, or the material is leather, and Arba'ol etzalala, and you have to pay another 4 zuz for the workers that will take this leather and make shoes out of it or whatever they make out of it. What was he saying? What Rav Safra was saying to Ravina is, the whole idea of Asisa Vayashavat Toiv is that you have to do what's right when you see a person that has a property and it's the neighboring property to be able to, that he should be able to work with it all together. In this case, though, he was telling him, Runya himself was a very poor individual. And for him to have the opportunity to buy a piece of land was something that was unusual. And here he got this opportunity. So therefore, just like for you, it's Yashav V'Toiv to have one property altogether, to allow a poor individual to buy this property is also the right thing. So the Gemara is using this expression that when you have a person who's a shoemaker, he's a shoe seller, he makes very little profit because he has to pay for the leather, then he has to pay for the workers to make the shoes. So he's making very little profit. So this is just an expression to say that he was very poor. That's Rashi's pshat. And there's another few pshatim, but this is the main pshat that Rashi accepts. Taisus here, though, asks on Rashi, Taisus says, Ein merachmim badin, that if he's poor, so what he's poor, but there's a din of bar metzra, which the Mefarshim discuss. Apparently, Rashi holds that even though there's a din of bar metzra, but there are exceptions to this halacha of bar metzra. We learned in the Gemara Bava Basra, when you have an almana, yisaimim, there's no halacha of bar metzra, because then they're poor and you have to give them the opportunity to buy this property. So that could apply here as well. But Taisus actually says that this story is a continuation of the previous story. Because before, what was the story? If you take a look here at this half of the Gemara, so you have the middle property, that's like the Gemara, let's use that as the mashal for the Gemara, and then you have the surrounding properties. Ravina was all around. But Runya did not own the entire middle property. Runya only owned, let's say, half of the middle property. And now Runya went and bought the other half of that middle property that Ravina was surrounding. Comes out like this. Runya was also a bar metzra. Elamai, Runya was a bar metzra just on one side of that property that he bought. But Ravina that's surrounding was a bar metzra on 3 sides. So what Ravina was arguing is that if we're both a bar metzra, but I share 3 borders with this property, and he shares 1 border with the property, I have the rights of bar metzra more than him. And on that the Gemara answers that people say bar letzala. What this means is that when you have to hire someone to do work for you with a small piece of hide or a little bit of a bigger piece, you're going to end up paying him the same price. It's going to end up being the same thing. And it's just using it as an example that over here, regarding the concept of bar metzra, it doesn't make a difference if you're the bar metzra on 3 borders or just on 1 border, it's the same thing. Because b'payil, as much as for you it's a benefit to have this property near you, for Runya, which is in the middle, it's a benefit for him to have 1 large property to be able to work with it all together. That's Taisus' pshat in the Gemara. First pshat in Taisus. A wall that was in a property between neighbors that fell. We obligate them to rebuild this wall ad 4 amis, up to the height of 4 amis, in order to prevent hezekriya. So the Gemara already explained before, even if you say hezekriya loishmei hezek, but in this case where the wall was already there before and the property was born under these conditions, so you have to rebuild the wall to the height of 4 amis. Now, if there's a argument that comes up whether they actually both paid. One says, I built the wall myself, you refused to build, and you owe me money for this. And the other says, no, what are you talking about? I paid you for the wall. So there's a chazakeh, there's an assumption that he actually paid him, that they participated in building it together, until proof will be brought that he came and he asked him for the money and he did not want to pay. Because since this is an obligation to pay, we know that one would not go build it himself without taking the other to Bezdin to build it together. So there's an assumption, there's a chazakah that he paid already. If you want to build higher than 4 amis, So then, if you want to pay yourself and build a wall higher than 4 amos, you can build it, but you can't obligate your neighbor to participate in that height of the wall above 4 amos. However, if after you went and added to the height of the wall, you built it higher than 4 amos, your neighbor came along and built another wall across of it or beside it, which is also that height that you built this wall higher than 4 amos, then you're going to have to participate also in that addition to the wall that's higher than 4 amos. And that's afal pi, shalei nasan olav esatikra, even before we see that you actually are using this higher part of the wall by placing a roof across that wall and the wall that you now built across of it, megalgalin olav esakel. We're going to obligate you to participate not only in the wall up to 4 amos, but even what's higher as well, because we see that you want to have benefits from that wall, or as some other Rishayim say, that you're already having a benefit from one wall on this side and the other wall on the other side that's across of it, the same height. So now you're showing that you're using that wall even in the higher part of it, so you have to pay your share in that part as well. However, regarding this part that you have to pay higher than 4 amos, once you show that you want to use it, you built another wall across of it the same height, but becheskas shalei nosan, there's a chazakah that you did not pay. If there's an argument whether you paid or not, the chazakah is that you did not pay until you prove that you did pay, because this is something that people are not aware that they're going to be obligated to pay. So you wouldn't pay it before you would be taken to Bezdin and you were asked to pay. So if you claim that you paid it before, we're not going to trust you that you paid. Okay, so the Gemara is going to explain the Mishnah, but it brings a machlokes regarding a loan, b'chlal, the payment of a loan, that will relate to what it said in our Mishnah. Reish Lakish said, if you set a time with your friend, you tell him, you set a time for a loan, that is. You set a time that you pay me up this loan in a year from today. Now, the borrower comes and says, I paid before that time came. He's not believed to say that he paid before the time came. Why? Because Levai sheyifra b'zmani. Halevai, let it be that people should pay on the due date of the loan. So he's claiming that he paid before. We have a chazakah. We know for a fact that a person did not pay before, and this chazakah is so powerful that the lender can be mitzi money. He can go and take money out of the borrower because we know that it's not true that he did. He for sure didn't pay before the time. And we're talking about Taisus here is actually guidance in the Gemara, Bava Basra, that this is all happening now on the due date. That's when this dintait is taking place. And the borrower says, I paid you before the due date. We don't believe him. There's a chazakah that he did not pay. However, Abai and Rava both say, it's not, you can't say that there's such a strong chazakah, because it does happen that a person will pay a loan before the due date, because Zimnin the Misram Zuzi, sometimes he'll come on money, and Amai says to himself, Ezel Ifrei, let me go and pay this up right now. So that he won't come and then bother me and annoy me for the payment. Let me just get it off my books and let me pay this loan. So since it is possible a person pays before, you can't rely on this chazakah that a person would not pay before. And if he claims that he paid before, the lender is going to have to prove that he didn't pay him yet. Okay, that was the machlokes regarding every loan. Tanan, what did it say in our Mishnah? Here, so the Mishnah, the first part of the Mishnah is talking about the wall that has to be built up to the height of 4 amos. They both have an obligation to build together. And one of them comes and claims that I built it myself and you owed me the money. So the Mishnah said, "B'cheskas shenasa." There's a chazakah that the neighbor, the other, he paid him his share, unless the other partner or the neighbor brings a proof that no, I built it myself and there were eidim there, that I asked you for the money and you didn't want to pay it for me. Otherwise, it's a chazakah that he paid the money. So what is the Mishnah talking about? Hey chidami, what's the case here? If the neighbor that says that you claim you built it yourself, no, after you were done with the building of the entire wall, so now it's the time for me to pay because the wall is already built. I came and I paid this money. I paid it in the time after the wall was built. And then the Mishnah says, yeah, we trust him. He has an obligation to pay, and he definitely paid. So, but if it says the Gemara Pshita, it's obvious that he should be believed. If it's already the time that he has to pay, why should we not assume that he paid? What kind of a proof does the other one have to say, you didn't pay me yet? He has to bring a raya. If you want to demand money from anybody, you have to prove it that he owes you the money. So if it's in the time that he should have paid and he claims he paid, why shouldn't we believe him? Pshita b'cheskas shenasan, obviously he paid. Elo says the Gemara Lav. Don't you think the pshat of the Mishnah is as follows? The Amalei, that this one comes and says, Peraticha b'toichs mani, that I paid you even before the wall was done. Even before you finished the height of this wall of 4 amos, I already paid you in advance. And on that, the Mishnah is coming to say that we taka believe him, even though it was before the time he had to pay. Alme, if so, I see from here that a person, it does happen, like Abaya and Rava say, if a person has the money, he'll even pay before the due date. And says the Gemara, no, in this case, our Mishnah is totally different. Shani Ocha, our Mishnah is different. Every row of bricks that you lay, that you put on the wall, it's already the time to pay. Over here, you can't say that the Zman of the payment is at the end when the wall is already done. Over here, really, they both have the obligation to pay and to build it together from the beginning. So therefore, what our Mishnah is coming to say is that even though over here, one of them accepted upon himself to build a wall, so you may think, once one accepts upon himself to build a wall, the time of payment is not until the end. But nevertheless, the Mishnah is saying, no, since really this is the chiyuv of both of them to build a wall, so if he says, I paid you right in the beginning, or I paid you when you put the first row, the second row, whenever he says he paid, he's going to be believed, because it's an obligation of both of them to build and to pay. So therefore, he's believed to say before that he paid for the wall. Tashama, the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from what the next case that the Mishnah speaks about regarding adding to the height of the wall above 4 amos. And over there it said that they don't have an obligation to build together, but if after one added to the height of the wall more than 4 amos and the other goes and builds a wall across of it that same height, so now you're going to be obligated to pay because you're showing that you're going to be using this wall and you're having a no from the height that he added. But on that the Mishnah said, the chazaki is that you did not pay for that height until you bring proof that you did pay. So the question here is, what are we talking about? If he comes and says, I paid you in the time, meaning after you put this height of the wall, and I also put my wall across a higher wall, and I knew exactly how much I'm obligated to pay, and therefore I paid you. It's already the time to pay, so I paid. Why shouldn't it be believed? So don't you think the Mishnah here is talking about that he's coming and saying, I paid you even before the time that I was chayiv to pay. I paid you before I put another wall across that says the same height, and then before I had any obligation to pay, I already paid you. And he's believed. Alma. So what we see from here is, the Mishnah said in such a case, he's not believed. He's not believed to say when he paid before. So what do we see from here? That a person will not pay before the time. That's why in this case he's not believed. So the Gemara answers, no, over here actually the case is, Shani Hacha, over here, what the Mishnah is saying is, even if he claims that he paid in the time, after it was clear what he's chayiv to pay, he put up another wall against this wall, and it was clear what he has to pay, and he says, then I paid, he's still not believed. Why? Even though it's the zman of payment. Shani Acha, this case is different. The Omar, because this person says to himself, who says I'll be obligated to pay for this? Because he knows that really usually a wall only has to be 4 amos high. If it's higher than 4 amos, he thinks to himself, I'm not obligated to pay. And even if I put up another wall across it and I have a benefit of that wall, but so what? I can now, after the fact, benefit from his wall and I'm not going to have to pay. So we know that in such a case, a person will not pay unless he was taken to Beis Din and they obligated him to pay. So therefore, he won't be believed to say that he paid. Says the Gemara regarding this machlekes, regarding whether a person would pay before the due date of the loan or not. Rav Papa, that is, Rav Hone, Rav Yeshua of the Kabai V'Rove. They follow the opinion of Abai and Rove that if a person says he paid before the due date, then the lender is going to have to prove that that's not the case. But Mar Baravashi, Ovad Keresh Lakish, Mar Baravashi followed Resh Lakish's opinion that says that you're not believed to say that you paid before the due date. Halavai, a person would pay in time. And the Gemara adds that Halavai Hilchasa Keresh Lakish, we pass on like Resh Lakish's opinion that there's a chazakah that you will not pay before. And even furthermore, that's even to collect money from Yisaimim. If the borrower dies before the due date of the loan, and now the lender is coming to collect money, he can collect the money from Yisaimim, and because it's definite that the father did not pay up the loan yet. And the Gemara explains what the chiddush is. Even though the master has said regarding collecting a loan from Yisaimim. When one wants to collect money from Yisaimim, and we're talking over here even about collecting money from Yisaimim that are gedolim. that they don't have any caretaker. They're from Gisayim Gedalim, but nevertheless, lo yifra ella b'shvua. You, in order to be able to collect the money, you're going to have to first swear that you were not paid yet, because it's possible that you were paid. The father's not here, and so therefore you could only collect with a shvua. But in our case, though, if the father died before the due date of the loan, then you can collect the money without a shvua, because chazakeh le'avedinish the part of a like Rish Lakish said, there's a chazakeh that a person will not pay up before the time. So here that's the halacha like Rish Lakish, and we go so far even to collect from Yisayim.